Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The knife slips when his sister asks for my baby. I jerk my hand back and the slice barely misses. My name is Aaron, I'm 29 and very pregnant. I'm standing at the counter pretending this is a normal family dinner. She leans on the counter and says it again, like she is asking for the salt. Just think about it, she says, eyes fixed on my stomach. Let me raise this little one instead, it makes sense. For a second I actually laugh, too loud and too sharp. I wipe my hands on a towel, trying to reset the mood. I honestly expect her to crack a smile and drop the bit. She does not laugh, not even a twitch at the mouth. Her gaze stays locked on my belly like it belongs to her. You know what I mean, she says, voice low and steady. You already have your life, your plans, your freedom. My heartbeat jumps and suddenly the whole room feels crowded. I tell her that no, I really do not know. I ask what exactly she thinks I am going to do. Give him to us after delivery, she says, calm and sure. Straight from the hospital before you get too attached. Her words land one by one, heavy and slow like little punches. I say she is insane, half joking and half not joking. My voice comes out too bright like a bad stage line. I tell her people do not just trade babies over dinner. She folds her arms and tilts her head, completely unfazed. People arrange adoptions all the time, she answers like she read a brochure. Then she drops the part that really makes me freeze. Your husband and I already discussed this, she says, eyes steady. He told me he wants to help us start our family. She taps the counter with one finger like this is settled. My skin goes cold even though I am standing near the oven. I ask when they supposedly had this talk and where. I ask why no one thought to include the actual mother. My voice rises on that last part and I hear it shake. From the living room, I catch my husband's quick glance, then his look away. I feel that tiny dodge in my chest like a pulled thread. She shrugs and says it came up while I was resting. He's a good brother, she says, like I should thank him. He knows how much this means to me and Mark. She drops her husband's name like a stamp on a form. Every word feels like it pushes me farther from my own body. I clear my throat and ask what give even means. She answers instantly, like she practiced this line in the mirror. You sign the papers, we bring him home and raise him. You can still visit, of course, we are not monsters. That last part makes my stomach twist harder than any contraction. In my head I try to keep things logical, very calm. I ask why she thinks I would ever agree to something like this. She spreads her hands like the answer is sitting right there. Because you can have more and I cannot, it is simple. Her voice stays soft while my pulse punches against my ribs. I tell her this is my first child, not a trial run. I tell her my body hurts every day carrying this little person. I ask her if she really expects me to just walk away. She leans in closer and I smell the wine on her breath. You would walk away knowing he is safe with family, she whispers. That part gets under my skin more than I want. Safe with family, like I am the danger in this story. I grip the back of a chair so hard my knuckles ache. I hear plates clink behind me and my husband clearing his throat. No one actually steps between us, they just listen and pretend. Inside my head I start bargaining with myself in real time. Maybe she is just drunk, maybe this is grief and frustration. Maybe if I stay calm it will all blow over. I tell myself not to explode, not in front of everyone. Later I will hate how polite I tried to stay in that moment. I ask where this plan even came from in the first place. Her face lights up in this hopeful, almost excited way. Our doctor said adoption is a great option for us, she says. And then your pregnancy happened and it felt like an answer. She looks at my stomach like she is already decorating a nursery. I mention agencies, lawyers, actual official processes for adoption. She waves that off like it is some unnecessary extra step. Why involve strangers when we can keep it in the family, she says. You know us, you trust us, it is meant to be. She says meant to be and something inside me really snaps. I remind her I did not get pregnant for her or anyone else. I remind her this child exists because of me and my husband. The baby kicks hard then, like he heard his name without words. I press my hand over the movement, grounding myself with that sharp thump. Her eyes follow my hand and her jaw clenches like she is jealous. Do you even want to be a mom right now, she asks. The question hits closer than I want to admit out loud. I have fears, sure, big messy ones that keep me up. But hearing her say it turns every private doubt into ammunition. I suddenly feel like I am on trial in my own kitchen. I tell her wanting and being scared are allowed at the same time. I tell her that fear is not a surrender note, not today. She laughs, a short, rough sound that makes me flinch. You love your career, your space, your quiet mornings, she says. You know I would give anything to trade places with you. Her words carry this raw edge that makes me hesitate. For a second, I see the dinner from her side of the table. She sees my swollen belly and the future she cannot have. I get that pain, I do, but not like this. Empathy does not stretch far enough to hand over my entire life. She steps closer, palm hovering just above my stomach. Let me do this, she whispers, almost like a prayer. I will handle the sleepless nights, the tantrums, the cost. You can just be the cool aunt, the fun one. My throat tightens because now she is selling motherhood like a timeshare. I pull back and tell her to stop touching me. My voice comes out sharper than I planned, and I see her flinch. She straightens and her face goes blank like a door slamming shut. Fine, she says, tone suddenly flat and dangerous. But do not pretend you did not know you had a choice. That line lodges in my chest like a splinter. A choice like there is some 50-50 split on the table. Like keeping my own child is one option among many. I look toward the doorway and catch my husband's eyes again. He looks away faster this time, and that tells me everything. In that moment, I realize I am outnumbered in this room. Not in bodies, but in some silent agreement I was not part of. They talked about my pregnancy like a project they could assign. My baby became a solution to someone else's problem. And I am the only one still treating him like a person. I set the knife down because my hands will not stop shaking. I tell her this conversation is over for tonight, completely over. She opens her mouth to argue, then closes it with a tight smile. Think about it before you say no forever, she murmurs. I wish I could say that was the end of it. Looking back now, that dinner feels like a warning flare. Every word she dropped that night was part of a script. I was still trying to be reasonable while she was making moves. I thought shutting down the talk would shut down the idea. I had no clue how far she would push after that night. I slam the bedroom door and his hand hits it. The sound makes my back ache, or maybe that is rage. He stands on the other side in that careful fake calm. You told her I might give up our child. The knob turns once slow, like he thinks I will cave. Open up, please, we cannot talk through wood. I yank the door hard and he almost loses balance. You promised her something, I say, and my voice shakes. He stares at me like I am speaking another language. I never promised anything, she gets carried away. I laugh once and it comes out almost like a cough. She described hospital paperwork that is not random fantasy. He rubs his forehead like I am giving him a migraine. She has been grieving for years, you know that. The way he says it drops the guilt straight on my shoulders. So I am supposed to fix that with my baby. He reaches for my arm and I step out of reach. This is not a trade, this is our son. I feel him watching my stomach, not my face. Tell me exactly what you told her, every word. He leans on the dresser and looks suddenly exhausted. I told her you were unsure about parenting right now. My chest tightens because that fear was supposed to stay private. You turn my doubts into her hope without asking me. He insists he only wanted to give her something to hold. She was sobbing, I panicked, I tried to comfort her. I picture that scene and my throat burns with jealousy and anger. You comforted her by volunteering my child's very creative move. He raises his voice for the first time that night. I did not volunteer anything, I just did not crush her. I ask if he nodded when she called this baby her future. He does not answer, his jaw just locks tighter. That silence hits harder than any insult could. If he had shut her down, he would say it instantly. Instead, he stands there replaying his own words in his head. I realize he has no idea how deep he let her dig. Listen, he starts, and his hands spread like a peace sign. There is no actual arrangement, no lawyer, no signature. He keeps listing missing steps like that makes it harmless. I hear one thing only, that he is leaving doors open. I tell him I need him to close every door now. No more hints, no more maybe, no soft maybes. He nods fast, too eager like he just wants sleep. Fine, I will talk to her tomorrow, it is done. That night I lie awake and count little jabs from my son. He flips and kicks like he is testing the edges. I whisper that I will not let anyone take him. My chest loosens a little, but my brain keeps running. The next week starts his sister pretending nothing happened. She sends a group message with a baby meme and hearts. He types back a laughing emoji before I can stop him. That tiny stupid picture tells me his talk never happened. I confront him in the kitchen while coffee drips behind us. You told her this is over, right? Completely over. He stares at his phone instead of my eyes. She knows you freaked out, she gets it, just relax. Relax? That word lights me up more than anything so far. Relax means stop making trouble, stop pushing, stop noticing. I grip the counter while a sharp cramp rolls through me. His mother starts calling in the evenings with friendly questions. She asks how I feel and if I am eating enough. I try to answer short, keep things neutral and polite. Then she slips in a line that freezes my spine. You know it would mean everything to your sister-in-law. She does not say what exactly, she just hangs it there. I test her with a careful answer, my voice thin. I am the one carrying him, that already means a lot. There is a pause long enough to hear her breathe. Of course, dear, but she is waiting on this blessing. She phrases it like some spiritual assignment from above. I tell her blessings are not passed around like party favors. After that call, the group chats start shifting tone. His mother sends name lists that all match his sister's taste. These would sound lovely with her last name, she writes. She never mentions mine, and I catch that pattern fast. Pictures follow. His sister has cleared a room and set up a crib. She captions it with things like, his space is almost ready. She never says whose child she is talking about, she just assumes. I show my husband the photos with my hands shaking. This looks like preparation, not daydreaming, look at it. He scrolls through them too slowly, barely reacting. They cope this way, it is nothing concrete, let them have hope. Hope? That word starts to feel like a weapon in my house. Anytime I push back, they call it crushing hope. No one mentions that my fear is real too. His sister begins dropping by without warning during weekends. She touches my stomach the second she walks in. She talks to my son using phrases like, when you come home. There is never a question mark at the end of her sentences. One afternoon she corners me while he takes out the trash. You are still thinking about our offer, right? Her hand rests on my arm, gentle and heavy. Do not make a final call while you are hormonal. That last word hits hard because it sounds like a trap. If I cry, I am unstable. If I stay calm, I do not care. I pull away and tell her this is not a joint decision. She smiles in this patient way that feels like a slap. I know you are overwhelmed, I remember that fog. She never carried a pregnancy, but she uses that word anyway. I will take the hard parts off your plate, you know. I will watch him, pay for daycare, whatever he needs. It almost sounds reasonable when she lists chores and bills. Almost. That is the problem. She keeps wrapping a nightmare in favors, and it messes with my head. I stop sharing anything real with my husband for a while. If I mention back pain, it will become proof I cannot cope. If I admit anxiety, it will feed their narrative again. So I nod, smile, and lie that everything is under control. Inside, I start to feel like a guest in my own pregnancy. His mother buys baby clothes without checking with me first. His sister talks about pediatricians she trusts near her house. My own choices shrink until they feel like tiny, shaky lines. One night I open my notes app and start typing furiously. I write everything they have said in one long, messy block. Seeing it all together makes my stomach roll harder than any cramp. I realize if I read this as a stranger, I would scream. I think about texting it to a friend, then stop. People love to say pregnancy makes women dramatic. I can already hear someone gently suggesting I am overreacting. So I delete the draft and sit there with my heart racing. That is when I remember Reddit, anonymous and blunt. I have lurked for years, never posted anything serious. Now I open the app and my hands tremble over the keyboard. I type a title that sounds insane even to me. New update, I write, and then I keep going. My sister-in-law wants me to hand over my baby. The words stare back at me like they belong to someone else. I hit post before I can talk myself out of it. Responses appear faster than I expect, line after line. Strangers call this situation disturbing and dangerous and not normal. They tell me to protect myself now, not later. One comment asks if they have tried anything with my doctor yet. That question sticks in my mind long after I close the app. They should not have access to my medical choices, but still. My next prenatal check is already booked for the following week. I go to bed wondering what exactly the why have been saying without me. So you are still planning on the adoption, right? My doctor drops that line while checking my chart. My pulse spikes so fast I feel it in my throat. I grip the edge of the exam table until my fingers hurt. What adoption are you talking about? He glances up like he expects me to laugh. The placement with your sister-in-law and her husband. He taps the screen with his pen, completely relaxed. You wanted baby discharged directly to them after birth. My whole body goes tight like someone locked every joint. I never said that, I get out short and loud. Every muscle in my stomach jumps at the same time. He studies my face for a beat, suddenly less casual. Your husband came in last week with his sister. They outlined a plan for you to consider. I ask to see whatever he is looking at right now. My voice sounds strange, thin and flat and shaky. He turns the monitor a little toward me on the wall. There it is in black letters like a memo. Patient sister-in-law listed as intended adoptive parent after delivery. I point straight at that line because my hands are shaking. That is false, I did not approve any adoption. I hear myself talking fast, one word chasing another. He leans back on his stool, eyes narrowing just slightly. Then we need to correct this before you go into labor. He explains that notes stay in the file unless clarified. He mentions legal risk and hospital protocols and liability. I barely hear it over the roaring in my ears. I interrupt and tell him to add a new note immediately. Write that I am keeping my baby and no adoption exists. He nods and starts typing, more focused now. Only you can sign consent, that part never changed. He turns the screen again so I can read each sentence. Patient explicitly denies any adoption arrangement with relatives. He asks if that reflects what I want recorded today. Make it stronger, I answer, my voice coming out rough. Put that no one else is allowed to speak for me. He adds another line about my sole authority over discharge. I demand a printed copy before I leave the room. If I am honest, I do not trust anyone in that building. While he prints, I stare at the earlier note again. There is a date from last week and my husband's name. My sister-in-law's full name is right under his. Next to it, a phrase about ensuring smooth transfer to relatives. That wording makes my stomach twist in a new ugly way. I sign the fresh paperwork with a cramped, jerky signature. My fingers keep slipping on the pen, palms damp and cold. The doctor asks if I feel safe at home right now. That catches me off guard more than anything else today. I tell him I am safe physically, just blindsided and furious. He reminds me gently that I control who comes into delivery. He lists options like security, visitor lists, restricted access. I nod, but inside I am still stuck on one thing. They walked into my doctor's office behind my back. If they did that once, what stops them next time? When the visit ends, I walk down the corridor on autopilot. A nurse gives me a sympathetic half smile as I pass. I wonder what version of me she heard about before today. Overly dramatic pregnant woman or unstable future mother who cannot commit. Either way, my family already started building that story. In the parking lot, I climb into the car and lock it. The paper sits on the passenger seat, glaring at me. I dial my husband with numb fingers and wait. He picks up on the third ring, sounding distracted and casual. Hey, everything good at the appointment? You put adoption notes in my medical file. The sentence comes out low and controlled and terrifying. There is a pause long enough to count heartbeats. I just went in to ask some questions, that is all. Nothing is official, we were exploring options with the doctor. I laugh once sharp because that choice of words is insane. Exploring options does not include writing that I am giving away my child. I stare at the wording again and feel my vision blur. You brought your sister to my doctor without telling me. Then you talked about my labor like I am a surrogate. He swears they never meant it to be binding or permanent. He says they only wanted to know how the process works. She has been struggling for so long, I was trying to help. He keeps circling back to her pain like it is the main point. Mine apparently is a footnote somewhere at the bottom. I ask if he ever once told them I was against this. Not uncertain, not conflicted against it, full stop. On the other end, I hear him inhale and exhale. I told them you were overwhelmed and not ready to decide. That sentence hits harder than the chart note itself. Overwhelmed, not ready to decide. It sounds so reasonable and so dangerous at the same time. Anyone hearing that would think I am changeable, easy to sway. Exactly the picture his family wants printed on Ev. Uri page. Listen, I manage through clenched teeth, staring at the steering wheel. This is not a committee vote, this is my child. I already corrected the record with the doctor today. I told him I am not placing this baby with anyone. The silence on the phone feels heavy and sulky. He finally mutters that I overreacted and embarrassed him at the clinic. Apparently they walked in there together and played united front. Now I am the one shredding that image in front of staff. Good, I answer, surprised how calm I sound right then. They needed to see whose body and whose decision this actually is. After we hang up, my hands will not stop trembling. I pick up the printout and read the new note twice. It helps a little, but not enough to steady my breathing. I notice one more detail that I missed inside the room. My sister-in-law is listed as an emergency contact. I do not remember ever giving that permission in any form. Seeing her name there makes my skin crawl all over. If something goes wrong and I cannot speak, they call her too. I pull out my phone again and hit the clinic number. This time I ask for whoever supervises patient records. When the administrator picks up, I keep my voice slow and firm. I explain that I found an unauthorized relative on my chart. I say clearly that she is not allowed access to information. We will remove her right away and restrict communication, the woman answers. I still ask for written confirmation because words are cheap in this story. Before I leave the parking lot, I snap photos of every page. I crop in close on the old note with their names. Then the new note underneath where I refuse the adoption outright. I save everything to a special folder labeled in big capital letters. In my head, I am already picturing future arguments over every line. Back home, the air feels thick the second I walk in. He looks up from the couch, expression already defensive and tired. I drop the paper packet on the table between us. Read the part I circled, I tell him, pointing. I watch his eyes move and wait for the flinch. His mouth tightens when he reaches the words intended adoptive parent. He traces the sentence with his thumb, avoiding my stare. That wording is on the doctor, not on us. I hit the table with my hand harder than I plan. You opened the door and they wrote exactly what she wanted. He insists again that no judge would enforce a casual note. He says I am making legal drama out of nothing. The thing is, maybe a court would laugh this off. But hospital staff might not, nurses could follow the wrong instructions. One busy shift and my baby is rolled to the wrong room. That image is enough to push me past arguing with him. I tell him his sister is banned from my appointments from now on. No more surprise visits, no more talks with nurses behind my back. If she shows up at the hospital, she stays in the waiting area. He opens his mouth to argue, then shuts it and looks away. That look tells me exactly where his loyalty sits right now. He is not planning anything openly, but he is not on my side either. He is stuck in the middle and still leaning toward his sister. I realize I have to protect myself as if I am alone. Because when push comes, I probably will be. Later that night, I sit in bed with the lights off. My phone screen glows while I search parental rights and hospital discharge. Article after article repeats the same basic point in different words. The person who gives birth decides what happens unless they sign something. The terrifying part is how many ways people can be tricked into signing. I start writing down questions for an attorney, my handwriting cramped. Do I need a will, a medical directive, anything special? Can relatives try to claim some verbal promise after the fact? What protections can I put in place before I go into labor? Each new question makes the situation feel both clearer and uglier. I find a local family law office with a contact form online. For a minute, I hover over the empty message box. Part of me still wants to believe this is just drama, that they will come to their senses before anything irreversible happens. Another part remembers that paper with her name next to my child. I type out a brief version of what happened at the clinic. I mention the chart note, the unauthorized visit, the emergency contact. I ask for a consultation about securing my rights during birth. When I hit send, my chest feels squeezed and relieved at once. That is the moment this stopped being a family argument and became a battle. At the time, I thought fixing the file would be enough. I thought one firm note from the doctor would shut everything down. Looking back now, that appointment was not the end of their plan. It was proof they were willing to move without me in the room. And the next time they tried, I would be flat on a hospital bed. My water breaks while I am halfway tea. Rough a sandwich. I stand up too fast and pain shoots across my back. For a second, I think I just lost control completely. Then another wave hits and I crush the counter edge. My phone is already in my hand before the fluid stops. I call him and breathe through another contraction while it rings. He answers all cheerful until he hears the way I inhale. It is time, I manage, and my voice sounds thin. In the background, I hear him drop his keys on the floor. He bursts through the front door 10 minutes later, out of breath. We do not talk about anything except the clock and the pain. While I pull on clothes, he grabs the hospital bag and wallet. At the door, I catch his arm before he reaches for his phone. Do not call your family yet, I say and step closer. His eyes flick down and then back up like he is guilty. They deserve to know, he mutters with his fingers tight on the keys. They can know later, I cannot fight while I am timing contractions. He holds my stare for a second, then nods way too fast. I wish I believed that nod meant any kind of promise. Contractions slam harder in the car and the seatbelt feels like a trap. He keeps checking the rearview like that helps me breathe. At one red light, his phone lights up with his sister's name. He flips it face down on his leg without answering. I do not miss the tiny twitch at the corner of his mouth. By the time we reach the entrance, my lower back is screaming. A nurse wheels me toward triage while I try to talk. I shove my folder toward her and gasp out one sentence. My sister-in-law is not allowed anywhere near my room. The nurse glances at the printout and her face tightens just slightly. You are the patient with the family dispute note, she says. Hearing it labeled like that hits me right behind the ribs. She points to a checkbox about visitors and asks who is allowed. I give her a short list and spell every name carefully. Then I add one more line, that my sister-in-law gets no access. The nurse asks if I want a password for updates at the desk. I say yes so fast I almost bite my tongue. We pick something simple and I feel a tiny bit steadier. She squeezes my shoulder once and her grip is firm and real. For the first time that day, someone here clearly understands there is a line. While they hook me up to monitors, he steps into the hallway. Through the open door, I catch his voice, low and excited. I hear him telling someone that we just arrived and my contractions are close. He lowers his tone when he reaches the part about which relatives can come. I do not hear the name, but I know exactly who he means. Another contraction rips through and I call his name sharply. He steps back and smiling like this is some big team project. Tell me you did not invite them, I say and stare hard. He shrugs and says they are already on their way to support us. My whole body tenses in a way the contraction alone could not manage. Your sister is not allowed near my room, I remind him. He rolls his eyes like I am being dramatic while hooked to machines. She only wants to see the baby, he insists, not take him. The nurse at the monitor glances between us and reaches for a note. I know she is clocking every word and I am weirdly grateful for that. She clears her throat and reminds us that visitor rules follow my choices. Hearing it out loud cuts through his attitude harder than I could. She asks again if any person should be blocked from the floor. I give my sister-in-law's full name and spell it slowly for her. The nurse writes something on the clipboard and the air in the room shifts. Labor blurs after that into waves and counting and short curses. Every time the door opens I tense, expecting her face. Instead, nurses swap places and check numbers and adjust straps. At some point, a voice at the station outside grows loud and angry. Even through the pain I recognize that pitch and my whole spine locks. My sister-in-law appears in the doorway with her arms already outstretched. "I am here," she announces, stepping inside. "Where is my boy?" I am half sitting, half lying, and an intense contraction slams through me. The nurse closest to the bed moves fast to block her path. My pulse spikes so hard I taste metal at the back of my mouth. "I am the adoptive mother," she snaps. "They already told the doctor." Hearing that word in this room makes my vision blur around the edges. The nurse squares her shoulders and tells her I denied any such plan. Behind my sister-in-law, I see my husband hovering and not intervening. That hurts almost as much as the contraction ripping through my lower body. "Get her out of here," I say, and my voice still carries. I tell them she has no rights to my child or my care. I repeat that I am not placing this baby with anyone. My sister-in-law laughs once, short and harsh and disbelieving. "You promised," she spits toward my husband. "We already started everything." The nurse reaches for the call button with a steady, almost casual motion. Within a minute, another staff member steps in with a clipped professional smile. She asks my sister-in-law for the password and waits in silence. Of course there is nothing, just sputtering and accusations thrown toward my bed. 2 minutes later, they escort her back into the hallway while she protests. My husband hovers at the threshold like a kid watching a punishment. "You did not need to involve security," he mutters from the doorway. I remind him that he is the one who let her cross this line. Another contraction crushes any softer words I might have grabbed. When it passes, I am sweating and furious and done apologizing for protecting my kid. After that, the room shrinks down to me, the monitors, and the nurse's instructions. My husband holds one leg and stares anywhere except between my knees. Voices rise again outside the door, muffled but wild and constant. Someone bangs once so hard the frame actually rattles around the edges. The nurse barks something toward the doorway and the banging stops, but the yelling keeps going. When my son finally slides free, the world narrows to his first cry. They place him on my chest and I cling like I am drowning. Tears hit my neck before I even realize I am crying. Out in the hallway, I hear my sister-in-law shout my son's name. She keeps screaming to let her meet her baby, and the words slice through everything. A nurse starts to lift my son to weigh him, and I panic. "He stays with me," I choke out as my arms lock tighter. The nurse nods and works quickly without carrying him out of reach. Through the doorframe, my husband keeps glancing at the shadow in the hall. I tell him if he lets her touch our child today, he can leave with her. His head jerks back like I slapped him across the face. For a second, I see the choice land right in front of him. A male nurse steps between us and the doorway and repeats the visitor rule. "Only approved names get in here until mom says otherwise," he states. My husband nods slowly, and for once he stays on my side of the door. Security must have arrived because the hallway noise drops to a low hiss. Someone mentions a waiting room and a supervisor, and the argument drifts away. Inside my room, everything stays small and bright and ridiculously fragile. My son curls his fingers around one of mine and does not let go. On the other side of the wall, his aunt waits empty-handed, and that is the line now. The envelope shows up while my son is wailing. I balance him on one arm and rip it open. My eyes catch phrases like petition and custody and specific performance. Somewhere in the middle, her name sits beside the word mother. I drop into a chair and hold my son closer. He quiets a little, probably from the sudden grip. The pages shake in my hand and blur in spots. They actually went through with it. They are suing for my baby. I call my attorney with my phone wedged under my chin. He already knows the hospital's story and the chart note. "She is arguing oral surrogacy agreement," he explains, voice calm and steady. "She claims you promised the child in front of witnesses." I almost laugh, but it comes out as a broken sound. I picture that dinner and my own nervous jokes. Did some clumsy sentence get twisted into this nightmare? "Can they really do this?" I ask, heart racing again. "They can file anything," he answers. "Winning is another matter." He lists the facts we have lined up in our favor. The corrected medical record, the security report, the visitor log. "Show up to court, stay concise, let the evidence speak." Court happens faster than I expect because it is an emergency. We sit at separate tables under bright humming lights. She looks polished, controlled, almost saintly in that room. I sit there with swollen ankles and an empty stomach and rage. Her lawyer talks first and frames her as heartbroken and hopeful. He uses phrases like family understanding and intent to place. He says I backed out because of hormones and outside influence. He finishes by asking the judge to enforce the agreement. When it is our turn, my attorney keeps it brutally simple. There is no contract, he starts, hands flat on the table. No written surrogacy, no adoption paperwork, no consent. He holds up the clinic note where I specifically refused everything. Then he calls me to the stand and my legs feel heavy. I swear in, sit and focus on a spot on the wall. He walks me through the sequence in short pointed questions. Did you ever sign anything handing over parental rights? No. Did you ever promise in writing that your baby belonged to them? No. Did you correct your medical records once you discovered their meeting? Yes. Did you tell hospital staff during labor that no adoption existed? Yes. My voice comes out stronger with each answer somehow. He asks if I ever agreed to act as a surrogate. I say no louder than I planned, and my throat burns. I feel my sister-in-law staring daggers into the side of my face. Her lawyer tries to rattle me with quick questions. He brings up my earlier doubts about parenting and career. He reads a text where I said I felt trapped and scared. I nod and admit I wrote that on a rough night. Were you considering letting your sister-in-law raise the child? The room goes quiet and I hear my own breathing. For half a second I wondered if I could handle motherhood, I answer. But I never agreed to disappear from my son's life. When the lawyers finish, the judge leans back and exhales. He looks at their table, then at ours, then at my son. There is no legal basis to take this infant from his mother. His tone leaves no open door for interpretation or hope. He denies every part of her petition in one short ruling. He also repeats that I hold full parental authority at this time. Then he glances at me with this measured, tired expression. If harassment continues, you may return with a separate request. That word sits in my head as we drift out into the hallway. Harassment. It sounds harsh and accurate and terrifying at once. I still half expect her to crumble and apologize out here. Instead, she storms up with her jaw clenched and eyes bright. You stole my child, she hisses, fists tight by her sides. You used me, got my hopes up, then changed your mind. People in suits slow down to watch but keep walking. I tell her this was never her child, not for 1 minute. My hands are shaking, yet my voice stays surprisingly steady. You invented promises I never made, I say, almost whispering. You cannot rewrite reality because you are hurting. She steps closer and jabs a finger at my chest. You will never let him know how much I love him. You will poison him against me and against this whole family. Each sentence gets sharper and louder and more desperate. My attorney moves between us with a quick, smooth motion. We are done here, he tells her, gaze flat and cold. He guides me toward the elevator while she keeps yelling. The last thing I hear is her sobbing out mine. In the car, my husband sits silent with his hands clenched. He watched the entire disaster without saying a single word. I stare straight ahead because eye contact might shatter me. Do you still think I overreacted? I finally ask. He does not answer right away, and that silence says plenty. When he speaks, his voice sounds rough but weirdly small. I did not think it would go this far. He keeps repeating that line like it is some defense. Over the next weeks, her texts turn more frantic than threatening. Screenshots pile up on my phone as she spirals. She calls me a kidnapper and a liar and a destroyer. She sends long paragraphs about souls and destiny and betrayal. I forward everything to my attorney without engaging even once. He replies that the judge basically invited us back already. We file for a protective order using the hospital reports and messages. Part of me still feels sick at putting more legal distance between us. The hearing for that is shorter but somehow more intense. This time the judge focuses almost entirely on her behavior. He reads out quotes from her messages while she shifts and trembles. He asks why she refused to leave the maternity floor when asked. Her answers swing between tears, anger, and elaborate justifications. She keeps coming back to words like promised and owed. The judge cuts in and reminds her that obsession is not a contract. He signs the order with a quick, decisive stroke of his pen. She is barred from contacting me or approaching my home or work. She cannot come within a certain distance of my child. Hearing that laid out clearly hits me right in the chest. I never imagined needing the law to hold my own family back. His mother unleashes next because of course she does. She leaves frantic voicemails accusing me of destroying her children. She says I humiliated them in front of strangers for no reason. She ends one message with, "You will regret this when he grows up." That last line pushes something solid into place inside me. If they talk like this now, imagine what they would whisper later. Imagine birthday parties where my son is told I stole him. Imagine holidays where they introduce his aunt as his real parent. I tell my husband I want to separate for a while. We stand in the kitchen surrounded by half-packed boxes. He stares at the floor like it might give him a script. "So you are punishing me because my sister is unstable." I set a stack of baby clothes into a bag and breathe. "I am protecting our child from people who ignore boundaries," I answer. "And I cannot do that with you glued to their side." He flinches but does not argue with that part. We agree on a basic schedule for visits without lawyers yet. He carries heavy stuff out to the car without speaking much. At the new place he helps assemble the crib. Tight silence. When he finishes, he lowers himself onto the couch, drained and gray. He asks if I still want him involved as a father. That question hits hard because it should be obvious already. "I want you involved," I say, "just not as her messenger." He nods once and rubs his hands over his face. Those first nights alone, every tiny noise sends my heart racing. I check the locks twice before nursing my son in the dark. I picture her outside the building even though I know she is barred. I keep my phone on the nightstand with the attorney's number saved. Timed as its slow, weird work on raw nerves. My son starts focusing on my face, not just shapes. He smiles one morning and it is sudden and crooked. The jolt of joy actually scares me with how strong it feels. In those moments the guilt comes back because of course it does. I think of her empty nursery and the photos she sent. I think of how she looked in the hallway after court. For a second I wonder if I could have handled things gentler. Then I remember her shouting, "I am the adoptive mother," during my labor. I remember her barging into my medical appointments without permission. I remember seeing her name on a file next to my newborn. Any softness hardens right back into something like resolve. My attorney calls one afternoon with a brief update. She tried to challenge the order and the judge refused. He sounds almost surprised at how quickly the court shut it down. He reminds me to save any indirect attempts at contact. Indirect turns out to mean social media posts aimed straight at me. She writes long, dramatic updates about losing her baby to betrayal. Mutual friends send screenshots with little apology messages attached. I block her everywhere and mute anyone who forwards her stories. My world shrinks to work, diapers, and short, quiet walks. It feels smaller, yes, but at least it is not chaotic. Sometimes my husband visits and stretches out on the couch, exhausted. He holds our son like he is afraid to squeeze too tight. One night after a feeding, the three of us sit in silence. Our son falls asleep on his chest with his mouth slightly open. My husband looks at me with red, tired eyes and wet lashes. "I am so sorry I did not stop this earlier," he whispers. I stare at him for a long beat before responding. Part of me wants to comfort, the other part remembers everything. "I wish sorry could erase the hospital hallway," I finally say. "It cannot, but it can change what happens next." That is really where we are now, stuck in next. Not divorced, not reconciled, just orbiting each other around this child. Every boundary I draw feels both necessary and mean. Every compromise feels like a risk I may regret later. Tonight, though, my son laughed for the first time. Not a random noise, a real honest baby laugh from his belly. He grabbed my thumb and pulled it toward his mouth. In that second, the whole courtroom drama faded to static. I opened Reddit again after he went down for the night. I scrolled through old messages on my original post. People had asked for updates and I never answered. I started typing with my heart pounding and fingers shaking. I wrote about the petition, the hearings, the order. I wrote about moving out and drawing lines with his family. I admitted that I still feel cruel on some days. I also admitted that I would do it all again. Because here is the thing I keep circling back to. They lost a dream, yes, and that hurts to watch. But I almost lost my actual child to that dream. And living with that would have swallowed me whole. So this is my new update, the one I promised. My sister-in-law is legally forced to stay away from us. My marriage is cracked but not completely over yet. My son is sleeping in the next room, completely mine tonight.